Hello, and welcome to Sutro Sidetalk, episode 185. I'm your host, Kamran Shushtar, and with me is...
James Sillig.
Okay, I find it, not funny, but uh, a bit ago, like a couple episodes ago, I was like, hey guys, we're back. We were gone for like 3 weeks to a month almost.
Nah.
We'll be here for a bit. Like, we're not going to do this again. Like, 2 episodes later, we're just like, hey guys, we're back again 1 month later. Though I will say, all for real reasons, of course.
Yeah.
To sum it up briefly, I'll just say really fast, my grandfather passed away, so there was a lot of time of just dealing with all that kind of thing. And then right afterwards, I had to go to a bachelor party
Yeah,
and
you were telling me
travel
that
across the
the
country.
bachelor party was like the day after the funeral, and I was like, oh my God, that
Yeah, so
sounds emotionally exhausting.
it was, and I was gone for almost 2 weeks, just because I was all the way across the country, and I'm like, if I'm going to be out here, I might as well like do some other things, see some other people too. So I went to like Florida as well, to Orlando, and whatnot. But yeah, basically it was like a whole month again of just being gone, and because of that, I delayed the episode 184 where we talk about Spy Family and Mob Psycho, which we recorded before all that. So the episode we put out last week, that was recorded like a month ago. And I just held on to it because I was just like, if I put it out now, like it was already like I wasn't putting it out right the week it was being recorded. Like I was busy with everything else going on. So I was just like, do I want to put it out in the middle of everything else? No, I'll just wait till we're about to come back. And the week before we come back, I'll put that episode out. That way it's not like just one episode in the middle and then nothing again for like another week or two. And then here we are again. But yeah, now we're here again.
Yeah,
And after all that, uh, it's been like a month pretty much. How are you doing, man? How's everything going for you?
pretty good. Kind of same as usual at work. So just keeping busy.
Cool, cool. All
Trying
right.
to get back to like a more regular gym schedule because I was kind of off for like a few weeks just because I just wasn't having time, and it's been so hard to get back to like consistently.
Yeah, my gym membership expired, so I have to actually like make a new routine for myself for home,
Right.
which will be a lot of cardio and maybe hit workouts and some other stuff just because I don't have access to all the weights I normally would to just get bulk up and everything else. So I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, just see what I can do with the 240-pound dumbbells and whatnot. But yeah, uh, this week, for 185, we're gonna do the HBO show, The Last of Us. The Last of Us, not The Last of Us. It is The Last of Us. I just want to say that. We're doing that. And then if we have time, we'll talk about the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which we just saw today. Today's also Easter, by the way. And we totally, I forgot when you invited me. You're like, hey, we're going to go watch Super Mario Bros. At the theater.
Yeah.
And it's the afternoon on Easter. So we
I
get
totally
there
forgot it was Easter too.
we get there and we're like, I think maybe one of two groups of just adults and everyone else is just parents bringing their kids. So I'm like, right,
Yeah.
all the adults would come at night to watch this, not during the daytime. So here's all
Also,
the
like as we
kids.
were going into the Stonestown parking lot, we saw that it was like basically empty. We are like, huh, I wonder why.
Yeah, the mall's
It's like,
closed
oh,
for
the mall's
Easter,
closed, right?
but
It's just the
theaters
theater
aren't
is open.
religious, so they're always open.
Yep.
Yeah, especially it's like the whole thing. You're Jewish, you go on Christmas to eat some Chinese food and go watch a movie, probably.
It's a
Um,
funny stereotype, but it's kind of true.
it is. It's straight. It's funny because it's a
Because it's
stereotype
one of the
where
few places that's actually open on that day.
yeah, it's pretty much the reason why. And it's a whole
Yeah.
thing where it's a for us, I think it's a self-fulfilling stereotype because you go like, oh man, I want to go out for Christmas and I'm Jewish. Oh, what's the thing we always go out and get Chinese food? I could do some Chinese food right now, and then you go and
Yeah.
just do Chinese food. So it's like you just make it happen to yourself because you heard about it from just like everywhere. But yeah, so Last of Us, Super Mario Bros. News wise, we'll just get into right now. We have a few things. First, it's sad, but literally around the same time of my own personal loss, Lance Reddick also passed away, which was really sad.
Yeah. That hit me real hard. Like, because I was at work, I literally saw, I was like scrolling through Twitter because I had like a few minutes for a break, and I saw like IGN's post, like Lance Reddick from his birth year to 2023, and I literally was like, no, what? Like, I don't know. It's weird. Like, you don't really
It's so
notice.
sudden. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like that's the reason why it hit so hard, because it's like he looks like so fit, and you're just like, how? Like, what?
And
And
it
yeah,
was like right after for like the next couple weeks, we're getting all this Zavala dialogue from the character he plays in Destiny
yeah,
2. I just saw John Wick 4 like last week, which she's also in.
yeah,
So it's weird just being like, oh yeah, hey, Lance Reddick's and all this stuff, and all of a sudden, yeah, now he's gone, and it's weird to just kind of have that happen in the middle of him being so present in media at the same
yeah.
time.
I mean,
Uh,
one of the nicest things, I guess, was like the Destiny community really came together around it, and we're like literally doing vigils around Zavala in the tower because that's the character he voices. And like people looked at his Destiny profile, and he was literally playing Destiny the night before he died. Like
yeah,
he was a member of the Destiny community, and he loved the community of that game as much as he loved that game itself. And it's just like it's kind of sad, but it's kind of cool to see that like the video game community can come together and do like a nice thing for once, I guess.
yeah. So that happened, and then which it honestly sucks, but
Yeah.
the other thing being E3 has been canceled, which dang, okay.
It's
It's
one of
like
those things
E3
that's
is
like
back.
I
No,
didn't expect it, but I kind of did.
yeah, because they were coming back, and we're like, well, what are they gonna do? Because all the big hitters aren't gonna be there. And
Yeah.
then I think they realized that too, and they're just like, it's pretty much it's not that they're irrelevant on their own. It's just that all the other companies are making them irrelevant by just pulling
Yeah.
out, making which was the whole point of E3, was like it was the platform for all these big hitters to kind of come out and show their thing. But if they're not going to do it there anymore, it doesn't really have the purpose it used to. And you're not going to really like go there to be like, hey, I'm going to go play these games and stuff, which, I feel like that's something you could just do at PAX. So
Yeah.
it kind of, loses its purpose.
Yeah.
And
Jeff Keighley has been kind of I don't want to say dancing on their grave
then like
since
right when it happened, Jeff Keighley's like, hey guys, Summer Game Fest.
yeah, but he's kind of just like he put out a statement saying that like he told them years ago that they're not evolving in the way that like the industry needs them to. And if they don't do anything, they're going to be in trouble. And they basically just like shut him down and were just like, you don't know what you're talking about. And look at what's going on now. And
And look,
they're
he's got his
fucking
own
failing.
freaking. He made his own rival show,
And it's
and
doing fine.
it's also smart because he's not making it as massive, so there's not as much to lose. And the fact that
Yeah.
he cooperates with all these other companies, where he's like, hey, can you give me something? I don't need you to give me your whole like roster. Just give me the next thing you want to show. So each company gives him something, and now he just populated his show, and it's not like a whole week long thing. It's like one main day of showcases, and there might be like more focused things throughout the week of like, oh hey, here's the Unreal 5 tech demo. Here's what was it, like the reveal for like Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk. Like Activision was working with it for a bit
Oh
too.
yeah.
Like they're using that. So there's something like we went last year to the theater to watch it. It had Call of Duty, it had Callisto Protocol before, when it was really hyped
That
up,
was a
and
cool
before we
experience.
played
Yeah.
it. And among like I think a bunch of other stuff was there too. So, there's always something. I think Street Fighter was there. That was like when it was first announced for six.
Oh yeah. I just keep
Uh
remembering like the how excited he was to show off Elden Ring for like the first time.
that was yeah, I think that was at the game. No, that
That
was
was at the Game Awards, I
yeah.
think.
And now, I think they're doing a physical showcase as well, where you can actually go to the Summer Game Fest. I don't know if that's this year or next
Oh
year.
yeah,
I think he said he's working on it.
the kind of funny guys were talking about it's something called like Summer Play Days, where it's like an add-on to his Summer of Gaming show, but it's just like literally a place for the press to come and play some of the demos if there's any available.
I think he said there would be though, like, people could come and see it.
Oh, for like fans.
I think, but I'm
Interesting.
pretty sure. I feel like he said it's in the works for next year, not this year.
Okay.
I don't know.
Cool.
I don't remember though, so don't take what I say with a grain of salt.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on it.
I guess final thing for it. How do you care that E3's gone?
Like a little bit because I got the nostalgia of when I was a kid and getting so excited for June because like one, it was like basically the end of school, and two, E3 always felt like it's weird to call it like gaming Christmas because you're not actually getting these games, but it's like you get to see the games you might be able to buy eventually, and it's just like it's a bunch of surprises, and it was really fun and really cool, and I looked forward to it every year. But now, like, all these companies can just do that at any time. And like, especially like Nintendo, every time they announce a Nintendo Direct, it's like a cool little experience. It's like a little mini E3. So we don't really need a singular E3 anymore, because people kind of just, the companies can just make their own event whenever they want now. Like Ubisoft is the Ubisoft Forward, and EA has EA Play, and Microsoft can do its own thing whenever, and Sony can do the showcases. So I have nostalgia for it, so I'm gonna miss it a little bit, but I don't think I'm gonna miss it that much, I guess.
Okay. I'm gonna miss it surely for the fact that it kept everything in the span of a week, and
Yeah,
it wasn't like
that's
overflow.
fair.
It was like a crazy week, but then that was it. Whereas now, we talked about it before, but now every mom and pop, like every Tom, Dick, and Harry is coming out going, well, now we have a show. And I'm like, do we have to watch it though? And then you watch it and you go, I wasted my time.
Yeah.
Like I didn't need to do this.
So even like the
Uh
future games show, and it's just like, what even is this?
yeah, some are fine, some aren't, but it's just in a weird time of just, hey, here's like literally like now instead of one big week of thing, it's like a couple multiple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I guess, of just like here's like a dozen showcases, and they're insane to cover, and it's not worth it for a lot of them. No offense to the games in them, but oversaturation is oversaturation,
Yeah.
and it. I think for us, we've done trial and error for it, where we're kind of refining how we're approaching all these different shows and making it so we don't have to talk about it as much as we would normally would, because we've done so many like mini episodes to massive episodes of multiple like episodes in a row of it, where it was like I think last year it was like 2 or 3 episodes just dedicated to showcases, whereas this time we're going to refine more and more and more of just, do we even need to watch this showcase? Is this important? Is this something we're going to have games we're even going to want to play? Because a lot of the times we say we will, and then we never do anyway. Because it's like, we're already busy with all these other games and life and everything else. So what's the point to it? Um, but yeah, I think E3, at least in that sense, was really fun. Plus, you expected the big, like you expected the big three exclusive publishers, plus like Ubisoft and EA
Yeah.
and Bethesda before it was bought, to show up there and give everything they got. And now everyone's spread out, and they'll be like, you're wondering, and no one has any communication. Like I complained last year, Xbox is like horrible with communication on it. And the only one that really has been doing good on its own is Nintendo, because they're
Yeah,
just like,
surprisingly.
here's a direct, and you're like, okay, they made it so they'll have something to share when they have something to share, but also they just kind of tell you ahead of time what it's going to be about. They're not like, it's a mystery, and then you're like, oh boy, and then you find out, oh, it's only the stuff coming out this year, and not all the stuff they announced for like the last 5 years, and they're all
Yeah. I think
missing.
they got burned one too many times of like fans being expecting something huge and getting like a tiny direct. So now they're just like, don't have,
Yeah.
like, this is what it's gonna be. Don't go crazy there.
And then you have Sony just never saying anything. And you're like, is there gonna be a showcase at all like this year? And you're just like, maybe
Yeah.
you get something. I mean, we're gonna get something for Spider-Man 2, so they have to. And then like
Yeah, Venom already said it.
Ubisoft will be like, here's 5
It's so
Assassin's Creed
funny.
games, and then you're like, why just tell us about 5 Assassin's Creed games?
That was a really weird showcase.
Yeah.
Whenever that was, where they were like, yeah, there's like a bunch of Assassin's Creeds happening over the next like 10 years. It's like, no, it's too much.
So, now everyone's just all over the place like the Wild West, and some are just like, they don't say anything at all when something's going to happen, or some will have something, but then not say what's going to be in it. So then you basically destroy your own expectations because they failed to tell you. And then you have Nintendo, and then everyone else just doing their thing. But Summer Game Fest too. But we'll see what happens. Sad for E3 to be gone. But,
Yeah.
life, the industry evolves and changes. And then finally, Star Wars Celebration was this week. Really fast. I guess the main things here were the Indiana Jones and Ahsoka trailers came out, and Indiana Jones looks really good. I'm pumped for
The
that.
Indiana Jones trailer was shown at Star Wars Celebration.
A second one, yeah, they had a
Oh,
second
that's
trailer.
weird. Okay.
Uh,
I saw
did
the
you watch
trailer
this?
though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was at start. Yeah, because it's Lucasfilm. It's like Lucasfilm Celebration. They do like
Oh,
Like
I guess that makes sense.
last year they had like Willow stuff there too. Um, but
I
they
love the idea of like they're bringing back Nazis that are trying to find like a time traveling device to fix like the how the World War II ended.
yeah, good old. You can always count on. I'm just. It's funny that they brought back Nazis and they're like, oh, it's Mads
Yeah,
Mikkelsen. Like
because
that's gonna be.
God, it felt so weird and like I mean, I kind of warmed up to the Crystal Skull eventually, but it was weird that it's like it's Russians now.
Oh, and
It made
Kingdom of
sense
the
for the
Crystal
time though.
Skull.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. No, I definitely get that. I think too, like, what was it, the movie? So yeah, you had those two, that trailer. You had Ahsoka's trailer, which is really cool. It's basically like live action Rebels, more or
That
less.
honestly, that's probably the thing I'm most looking forward to because the way Rebels ended was so like they set up such a cool storyline and just like the show got canceled or whatever. So I really want to see them like progress that story. And yeah, seeing like live action Hera, live action Chopper, and yeah, just Ahsoka, I am so excited for.
Mm, okay.
I love how people are freaking out about the one dude with the orange lightsaber because it's like, no, there's only ever been one person with one of those.
And then here's the crazy, because you know how they keep announcing all these Star Wars movies and then
Mhm.
canceling all these Star Wars movies. And pretty
Yeah,
much Star
Ryan
Wars movie,
Johnson's
like
is
when
like
you hear a
not
Star
being
Wars
worked
movie
on.
is going to come, it's basically just kind of like it's kind of like a joke at this point because you're like, is this actually even going to show up? Like so many have been cut high and dry. Like pretty much you look at Disney Plus as the Star Wars platform, movies is a pipe dream at this point.
Yeah.
And they announced three more after canceling some others, but we're just going to talk about the ones that were announced. One being a kind of like the crossover movie, I guess, from Filoni and I think Favreau, and it's basically gonna like be between Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi, like before Force Awakens, after Return of the Jedi. It's gonna be like, it sounds like a crossover of like Mandalorian, but Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, New Republic stuff, and it'll probably have like all those characters in it and have something crazy go on. I'm
Interesting.
thinking is it's probably going to be like the finale to all this stuff happening. Like, you know, at a certain point, all these things have to end. So I think this will kind of be like the wrap up of that era of Star Wars, at least that like portion that they've been working on of just like you know, those shows and stuff. That the first wave of Disney Plus, I guess you could say.
I don't know why it makes me weird. It makes me feel weird that Star Wars might be getting like phases like Marvel.
I
Uh,
know. I mean, it's not, but I wouldn't look at it that way because it's just, you know, it's a wrap up of just that kind of stuff. And I think, I mean, first phase of just like, it's this time in the galaxy, whereas now, you know,
yeah.
they're thinking of like,
Right. They're
they
gonna maybe
started the
work
High
on like
Republic
yeah.
and like the books and comics, and now they're entering media and games. It's like film and games and whatnot. And looking at like the sequel trilogy era too. So
God,
there's
I would
that.
love an old Republic show.
This one's interesting. James Mangold, who's the current director of Dial of Destiny, the Indiana Jones movie,
Mhm.
is going to make a movie that's more or less the Old Republic, or prequel to Old Republic, if anything.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
it's going to
Oh, right.
be
The
focused the Dawn of the
origins of the
Jedi.
Jedi. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dawn of the Jedi.
which I'm thinking like, is that going to have the three characters from Clone Wars, like the
God, I
Avatar
hope
of
so.
the light
Those
side, the dark side,
that was
and
like one of the coolest storylines in that entire show.
oh yeah. So I'm thinking like, yo, you could totally do that. So that's gonna be very interesting. And then finally, it was the third one. There was one more. I'm looking for it really fast. Uh Daisy Ridley returns to the stage and surprises fans along with
Oh yeah.
director Charmin Obaid Chinoy. Sorry if I butchered that name. And it's gonna be a movie that happens 15 years after Rise of the Skywalker, and
Huh.
Rey is returning in this movie as a Jedi Master as she builds a new Jedi Order. And I'm assuming maybe they'll have like a young Grogu, an older Grogu in there too, be like, oh, you know, you need people to teach or whatever.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
So none of these films have release dates, and that one I already don't really. I'm not looking forward to. I'm
Yeah, it's
like,
really
two
weird.
of those sound cool.
I was not expecting to see Ray back ever again. I don't know why.
I mean, it's she. It wasn't her that the one that severed ties. I think was John Boyega because
Oh
they
yeah, yeah.
screwed over his character. They screwed over him and his character.
Oh, absolutely. I
And
mean, he was like the most wasted character in that entire trilogy.
yeah, so it's just a whole the sequel portion of Star Wars is such a I just don't it's like Chernobyl. You just don't cross into that area. It's irradiated. It's full of like insane online discourse, which I will say in the beginning. I didn't really add to it, but I was always just like, yeah, the fucking 8 and 9 sucked, obviously. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, no, no, I like this one. Just like, okay, yeah, everyone's gonna have opinions on this shit.
It's
But
funny that like I kind of liked 8 when I first saw it, but it's like the more I looked into it and the more I watched it, I was like, none of this really makes any sense actually.
I every time I watched it, like I just got like I got a bigger frown each time I watched it, and I'm like, oh, this
Yeah.
is
I've
I
never had
don't
an
like
experience
this.
like that in a movie before. Like I've had an experience of a movie where like you watch it again and you get more out of it.
Yeah,
I've never had an experience of a movie where it's like literally the more I watch it, the worse it gets.
yeah. But all right, that's pretty much what happened with that. But there's other stuff at Celebration, but you guys can look that up on your own, check it out. We just wanted to talk about that stuff because it was like the only really big announcements for the most part. And then I'd say now we can just jump into our main discussion, which will be the HBO Last of Us TV show that was on like HBO Max and HBO Channel and whatnot, with Pedro Pascal as Joel and Bella Ramsey as Ellie. Uh, this show, this show's pretty funny because it's you're just kind of like, is this gonna be good? And it comes out and you watch each episode and you're just kind of like, video game adaptations for like shows and movies don't usually do good at all. They're usually pretty bad. And
Because they try to change too much because people are like, no one will ever like a video game as a show.
yeah, you're hoping, you're like, at the very least, maybe in its own way it'll separate from the game and do its own thing and do good. And then in a better world you're like, oh, they did a good job, it was enjoyable. And in best scenario you're like, hey, they did it, they adapted it, I'm so happy they finally did it. And for the most part everything is always trash, or it's okay. And I think the only ones we've really enjoyed so far have been animated, being like Arcane and
Yeah, generally.
Castlevania, or like the ones that somehow Netflix is the one that's doing really well with it. Meanwhile, their adaptations for anime are actually god awful. Thanks, Cowboy Bebop.
We don't
But
want to talk about Death Note.
oh yeah, that too. And please, One Piece, please be good. One Piece, please.
I
Uh,
forgot about that.
yeah, I mean, it's looking good.
Yeah, so
Ironically
far
enough,
the
so
casting
far
looks pretty good.
it looks like everyone actually cares. They're like, we can do this anyway. The Last of Us did something different that I think no one expected. It bypassed everything else. It's like, hey, is this, good on its own? Like, is it different? Yeah, but it's not like different. It's just like there's a couple things here and there, but otherwise it's the same. And you're like, oh, okay, well, is it bland? No. Oh, is it a faithful adaptation? Yes. Well, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, it's almost as good as the game? No. It's better than the game
Yeah,
story.
there are
It is
some
somehow
scenes.
even better than what it's based off of.
I was telling my
Insanely enough.
coworkers that like I love the game. Somehow the show might be better.
Yeah. I was not expecting them to make this work this well. And I will say, I got to listen to a lot of why these things were happening the way they were, because they had a companion podcast out that was like hosted by Troy Baker, and it had Neil Druckmann and the guy that did Chernobyl. They were both on it because they're the showrunners for this. So it's them like talking the whole time about each episode, why they did something different. And it was so interesting to find like, hey, so why did you guys change this? Well, in the game, there's all this gameplay and there's a lot more enemies and all this other stuff, but it's not as realistic when you do that in a show, and it's not going to work to the audience that way, so we changed it in this way. And it's like, that makes perfect sense actually. And because of that, because it's a full narrative driven, I mean, the game is very narrative driven too, but the gameplay is still there and very good.
Mhm.
uh the show somehow just integrates it to a point where everything flows so neatly, and all the changes they make are changes for the better. And it's even more enjoyable for the sheer fact that this is the same guy that made the game. And he goes,
Yeah.
"Hey, this didn't work for this, and I'm working with you on it." And it's kind of something I feel like we've always wanted, because normally a lot of the creators, the original creators for anything, never have a hand in the adaptation that's being created, like made for everything else. Like Exhibit A, World War Z. Max Brooks, son of Mel Brooks, made a crazy zombie novel that's like really cool and like interview style. And then Brad Pitt's like, "Hey, can I get the rights to this?" And then the only thing similar to the book is the name of the title. Otherwise, it is a completely different thing. There's nothing the same in it, and it's actually I hated it. I thought it was an awful movie, but which people will disagree with. But this, they did everything right, and they did everything better, and I couldn't believe it.
Even like the changes that they did make, like they basically replaced the spores that the cordyceps makes.
Yeah,
Like, because in the game,
with tentacles, more or less.
yeah, like, and somehow, so in the game there would be sections where you'd have to put a gas mask on because there'd be spores around, and if you breathe them in, you get infected. And it makes sense that in a realistic setting, if this pathogen was not only just like carried up from like zombie bites, but also it's like literally airborne, we would be pretty much fucked. So they replaced it with something that's not quite as believable, but possibly cooler, and also still based in reality, because like
They also
they
want
talk
the actors' faces shown.
that too.
They were like, "Could we get around this somehow?"
But like so they have the like one, it's creepy that the infected have these like fungal like mycelium things coming out of their mouths.
Similar
Like,
to the strain,
yeah, it's super
actually, if you
creepy
ever watched the
looking,
strain.
and just like super gross. But also like they talk about how fungus can communicate over long distances with like chemical signals and shit like that. And so the cordyceps like stuff that's like spreads along the walls and like the ground and stuff like that, that's not just for show. Like, that actually is how the like zombies communicate over long distances. So they show that, like, yeah, that's how hordes can know that there's a survivor like somewhere and just like swarm them, and why it's so hard to avoid like these clicker swarms, because they literally can like know where you are long before you know where they are. And I
Yeah,
thought that it's like, it's maybe less believable, but it's like really cool, like a cool idea, and like some
they actually say
believable
like
enough.
Neil Druckmann was like, when they came up with the whole thing of the vines causing like horde attacks. Oh, it's just like, oh my god, I wish I had this for the
Yeah.
game. From what it sounds like, because it's almost all but confirmed they're going to do The Last of Us Part
Yeah.
3. That there is a chance then. What if this gets integrated into The Last of Us
That'd be
Part
so
3? It's like an
interesting.
evolution of the cordyceps, which would be, yeah, very, very
Yeah.
interesting.
But then I
Uh,
also like that there was like hints to the game, or nods to like gameplay elements, like when the two clickers first show up in the show. And it, first off, it's like really cool that they had such a hard time killing just two of them, because it really
and
made
those
them
are
feel like,
prosthetics. That's practical effects too. That
yeah.
was dope
And
as
like,
hell.
one, they looked really good. They sounded right. And I love that they make them feel like an actual legitimate threat, and like why Joel and Tess were like terrified of running into these things. And um oh, I forget what I was there was like a reason I was like going into that, but I'll let you go.
Okay. Um, yeah.
Oh, right, sorry. There's like one moment where Joel steps on like broken glass and it alerts the clicker, and I was like, that's just like in the game. You got to avoid the glass like in the game.
Yeah.
Uh,
At first I was like, did they throw a brick? I couldn't remember, because Ellie's like, "Hey, asshole," and like throws
yeah.
it at the dude when they're in like Pittsburgh.
Dude, I laughed so hard when she actually brought out the book of jokes, and I was like, oh, they're doing it. They're doing their
Yeah,
stupid
they brought the
jokes.
puns, and I was like, awesome, thank
Uh,
you. Bring in the puns, baby. Uh, I guess the way I want to tackle this first is, there were, what was it, 9 episodes?
yeah.
And each episode is a part of the journey that you have in the game. and some are more. Well, yeah, no, they are, and some of them are longer than others. Some are like in terms of the game, like some parts are very brief compared to others that definitely stretch out more. And the first one, I really, I guess, just to specify for the prologues they do for the first couple episodes, I really like those. One being the interview, and it's like, oh hey, here's like these scientists talking about how our cordyceps would be if they ever changed, and one's like, we would be destroyed, and
Well,
everyone's just
I
like,
just
oh my
love that it
god.
starts off with like, so doctor, like, what are you afraid of? A viral pandemic, a bacterial pandemic? He's like, oh no, I'm more scared of fungus, and everyone laughs at him because it's like, you're scared of mushrooms, and it's like, oh no, let me explain to you why a fungal pandemic would be worse than anything you could imagine. And like literally by the time he's done, like literally the entire audience is just like, uh
I'm gonna go home and hug
gulp.
my kids. Yeah.
Yeah, hope that never happens. And then like to kind of jumping forward, but like in the next episode,
Enjoy
when you
30
get,
years of life while you
yeah, when
can.
in the next episode when you get the mycologist or whatever who is like,
It was in like Sri Lanka. It was somewhere in the Pacific Islands, if I
yeah,
recall.
like where the infection basically like started, and they bring her in to show her like what's going on, and they're like, how do we stop this? And she's like, bomb the city. Like that is literally the only thing you can do to try to stop this from getting out, is just flatten the city with fire. I'm
And
gonna
the
go home
crazy
and hug
thing
my
is,
kids.
the interesting thing about that too was like she does a whole like autopsy and looks at everything and she's horrified. And this is like a big general talking to her, and he's trying to get a scientific mind to really like, hey, so what do we like? How do we overcome this? And being the military's thing is like, we'll probably just destroy everything, and they're getting the scientists to find the alternatives. And you see the sheer fear on his face when the voice of reason, the science behind, like, when you're looking for
Yeah,
science to not have you do like the blunt order of just destruction. And she says, yeah, bomb it all, bomb us all, kill us, you need to
yeah.
kill
Don't let
us,
anyone leave the city, because
including them in that room.
she's like, do you know who infected her? You're like, no. Well, are there anyone else from this like flower factory that she was from like missing? And like, yeah, there's like six people that are missing, and that's when she's like, it's out there. Like
It's over.
there you can't, if you
Yeah.
can't find these people, and if they're already infecting other people, we're fucked.
And so, you see the fear on his face when she says that, because he's just like, we didn't want this to happen. So that, just these prologues that add into it are amazing on their own. It actually reminds me of The Walking Dead a bit in the very first season. And that was a show that was like kind of doing things differently at first. And it was really good. And then it turned into shit
Yeah,
because they were having
it just
they
kept
had their
going.
they had an identity crisis of, are we adapting, are we not adapting? And they did, but they kept changing shit, and it wasn't good changes. And it was just like, if you're gonna do it, just adapt it like manga goes to anime, because it's just the same thing. It's just you're now making them move on their own, instead of like changing the plot lines and whatnot. But for this, they're just like, yeah, here's these cool stories. And then you get into the episodes, and the first episode I thought was very amazing for the sheer fact that the average audience member, like the audience viewer, the person that's hasn't played these games, a lot of people haven't played the game and are watching this, and they're like, hey, everyone's saying to watch this show, it's really big, it's like taking the world by storm,
Yeah.
like
Oh, I
it's,
really like the Sarah character. I hope I get to see more of her.
they don't expect, like, hey, is this girl the main character, this young girl, and her father is Pedro Pascal, is Joel, and you're like, oh cool, dead, and you're like,
And that
like
was
20
literally one of the
minutes,
most
22 30
heartbreaking
minutes in.
things
Yeah.
in the game. Like that shocked me so hard when I played the game for the first time, and somehow it hurt just as much in the show, if not more, because like the most of that episode was just following Sarah
And you're
and following
building
her
up for
day.
Sarah, and
And you get to see that she like how she went to go fix like Joel's watch, and she did steal money from his drawer to fix it for him and stuff like that. All things that were mentioned in the game, but you don't get to see because it
it's
just
more
like,
fleshed out. Yeah, they
yeah,
flesh everything out, and you're just like, holy, yeah, this is why this works better than the game's story, because they're not hindered by gameplay. Not to say that, you know, gameplay is bad for a game. Obviously, it's a game. That's the point of a game, is the gameplay, not the story. Story comes second. I
Mhm.
still prefer story in a game, and usually I need both
Same,
for
yeah.
a game to be good. But this one's just like, yeah, it's only story, so here you go. Here's every single like background of what happened that day, and you get to the moment, you know, she dies, and for us, we knew it was going to happen. You know, we were ready for it, but also it was still just like, damn, they did
Yeah.
it. Like, I can't believe it. Like they made it so this entire show you're going through it and you know exactly what's going to happen, and it happens each time. And my only regret was not watching it with someone who hasn't seen
Yeah.
it or played the game before. And you know, I feel like it's something where you can still do, because, you know, there's gonna be a lot of people out there that still haven't watched or played it, so you can still get that satisfaction of just like, how are they gonna react to this? And, you know, even though we knew everything was going to happen, which kind of shows, you know, when you're watching something or you read something and now you're watching it, it doesn't make it trash, or it doesn't make it bad, because you already know what's going to happen. Instead of being taken by shock value, which, you know, can be argued good or bad in terms of what if it what would you call it, if it contributes to the quality of something.
Yeah.
Instead, you're focused on everything else, the facets of the characters, the way they did everything, and that really is what grades that's what grades everything. You're not getting shock factor, you're not getting nostalgia, you're just getting straight story and character development and just good filmmaking for a show.
Yeah.
And it's in an era of, I guess, like so many streaming shows kind of clouding everything up, it felt really nice to have something, especially a video game adaptation, do so well. And I'm not saying, you know, there was arguments of being like, hey, it's the first really good one. And everyone's like, what do you mean? Arcane's right there. And like,
Yeah, people were saying like, "Oh, the video game curse is broken." It's like, I mean, there's been good video game stuff, just maybe not
but
live action.
yeah, just not live action. It's all been animated, and this is the first time we're finally getting live action done well. And, you know, Uncharted actually did good. It just
Yeah,
wasn't great.
it wasn't great,
And
but
it
it
was,
was fun.
yeah, and it's also skippable. Is
Yeah,
the other issue. So this one, on the other hand, you're like, yo, you have to watch this.
dude, I
You
was
gotta watch this show. You want to tell
literally
people,
every
go see this.
episode. After every episode, I was upset because I had to wait a whole week to watch the next episode.
Yeah, and it's funny because you know, of course, there's like the little like, hey, next week on Last of Us, just like a lot of the other shows always do that. But this one, you kind of, they give you that little snippet, and with that little snippet, you already knew the entire point of the next episode. You're like, I know exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to start, and how it's going to end each time. Like, that was not difficult, to be honest. Like, you know, they show we're going to St. Louis instead of Pittsburgh. They just changed the city, and you
Yeah, that
go,
was interesting.
okay, so we're gonna
They
get
did shift
Sam.
around like some of the places that you go to and like when, but it's like still generally the same story beats.
Yeah,
So it still felt the same.
but you get like the brothers again, you get everyone else, and you're expecting that and everything. And I guess the only thing for me was like, oh, we're gonna get everything in that one episode. No, it's gonna be broken up into two parts, because one is them kind of getting into the city and everything
Yeah.
else, and the
It was
other is
interesting that they fleshed out the Sam and Henry thing like way more than almost anything else except for like Bill and and Frank.
exactly. So the show can get away with, you know, to make it longer, they can expand on more characters that you wouldn't normally have gotten to expand on in the game, and just kind of include all of it there. They even did like the DLC was a whole portion. That was a whole
Hmm.
episode was the DLC. And that was also different too, just to say the least, because they're not like
A little
going through
bit.
them all with like at least not in there gathering medicine, like having looters there and throwing like
Oh
stuff
yeah.
over there to get clickers to run over and attack them and everything. uh there's like a they she goes in, for those that don't know, in the game, when Ellie's like looking for medicine, when Joel's pretty much out of commission, she goes into a mall, and that's what spawns the flashbacks of her and Riley in a mall when they first get infected. It's a completely different mall, but going into one again is like, oh, I like I lost someone before this, and I don't
Yeah.
want to lose Joel like I
But a
lost
lot of
her.
the flashback stuff were similar, like the going to the Halloween store and putting on
Mhm.
masks and dancing and stuff like that.
Yeah. The only difference, like I said, being that she is in like a current mall,
Yeah.
uh, and then reminiscing. But uh, episode one, I thought they did a great job of just kind of, hey, here's his daughter. This is what happens. Now here's what the world is like now in this day and
Dude, even
age.
in the present day stuff in the 20 years after the infection, like they fleshed out Tess a little bit more.
Yeah,
Like in the game when she first shows up, she just like has a black eye and it's like, yeah, one of our guys
exactly. They give an
uh
explanation to everything that you
and
get
you
in the
get to see
game.
like the scene. It's like I love the guy trying to just be like, I just need you to promise me that you won't sick Joel on us. It's like, what the fuck do you want me to do? I just want to go home, man.
I love how she's captured, but she's in charge more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, everything that happens. But you've got that, you've got the ending, which, reveals that Ellie's infected and immune.
Dude, even the
And
guy that like Joel beat the shit out of, like they kind of fleshed him out a little for a
yeah,
second.
for a little bit, yeah, for just a little bit more than you would have normally had. But then you get like episode two, and it's the whole death of Tess episode. Like it's her getting infected, but it's also them getting out of Boston, which was interesting because the change there being she gets killed by the Fedra when they invade versus the
In the
show.
game.
Uh
Yeah.
she's infected, and the
She basically like
vines, like,
like blows herself up to kind of give Joel and Ellie a way to get away.
yeah, because they're gonna get attacked by the horde, which was
Yeah.
interesting because that's when they first show the vine use of just like, hey, it's a hive mind. If you touch this, they're all gonna show up, and you see them all sleeping out there, and they wake up, and you're like, oh well, they're pretty far, right? No, they're
Yeah,
close
they
to
can
the
book it if they need to.
yeah, they're gonna get there very fast, and you're just like, oh, that's horrifying. And you see her get the kiss of death, which is also even
That was a
more
little bit weird.
horrifying. They explain it, and it's very interesting the way
Well, it
they
makes
talk about it.
sense, but
But
it's also just like, oh, he's just like going down on her. Okay, well, not like that, right?
going, wait, yeah, that's completely that would
That
have
was a
been
little, yeah, not that. Okay,
yo,
never
I think
mind.
I think I'm watching the wrong
That
last
would
of the
probably still
show.
work though.
It's always like the thing where they have there's always like that meme of there's a porno adaptation of like a movie or a show, and it's always says like, oh no, I think I downloaded like the wrong
Oh yeah.
the wrong it movie or something, and it's like you see the picture and you're like, oh my god, that's hilarious. That would be The Last of
I
Us.
wonder what the Last of Us porn name would be. Whatever.
I'm not thinking about that. I was gonna get into it, and I'm not going to right now.
Uh,
uh God. Then episode three was this is where it changes a lot because in the game they get to Bill and Frank's. Frank is dead, and you're like, oh, I don't know what happened to him. He hung himself somewhere because he got infected, or he like blew his brains out. I forget.
yeah, dude. Like
And
Frank's story is, or Bill's story is like so much sadder in the game. Like it's weird because like I guess spoilers, Bill also dies in the show, but at least he got a happy ending
in
a
the
little bit.
game, he's just alone. He's like
Yeah.
angry and alone, and because
And do like
he doesn't die.
the letter that Frank leaves him is just like, I fucking hated you and I'm glad I'm dead. So I don't have to deal with you anymore.
Where's the show? And the show, John Offerman,
Dude,
freaking Ron Swan.
I
It's
was
just Ron
ugly
Swanson
crying.
again in
Dude,
The Last of Us.
I was absolutely ugly crying by the end of that episode because it's like, you know, if your loved one was dying, or not even just dying, or just like slowly falling apart because of like a disease that you literally could not cure, even if you had the medicine for it, like, or even if the medicine existed, you couldn't get it.
Yeah,
Like, so it's just like, how do you possibly ask your loved one to stick around when they are just like, I'm literally suffering daily, like I cannot do this anymore, like, so you get it, like you get that he's like, I need to do this for him, but it still hurts so much. And then like the whole thing at the end where he's just like, yeah, I put the pills in the whole wine, so we're both dying.
yeah.
And Frank's just like, well, I don't approve, but I get it.
I love that because he says like, my life has been fulfilled. Like you made me,
Yeah,
you
it's like, you
completed
were
me.
my purpose, what am I gonna
Yeah,
do without you?
and
It's
it's
very
just like,
sweet.
yeah, it's very incredibly sweet, and the I think it was an interesting episode just because you get that full story of just, and then when you really cut, it's like, so what's useful in this? We get there, oh, they're dead. All right, get the car, let's leave.
Yeah, they still get the car and go, but it's
Oh my god,
uh,
I just
dude, I love how Bella Ramsey read the thing at the end, the letter that they left for Joel. It's like to any, it's like to whoever finds my stuff, but probably Joel, because you're the
yeah,
only one who knows my codes. And then like he ends with, he's like, but like I always hated you, ha 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 ha. Ha. She reads it so weird.
it's so good though,
Dude,
and
I
then
was so worried that Bella Ramsey wouldn't be like a good Ellie because she doesn't like
she was a
quite look like
fantastic
her.
Ellie.
Dude, she was fucking perfect.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I found weird in terms of what she said was just buddy boy when it's James
Mm,
and um holy crap, why did I just forget his name? It's like the most important name. We'll get back to it. But you definitely get like that whole feeling of it's not filler, but it's just a good story. It's a
mm-hmm.
well done story that potentially for Emmys, I'm guaranteeing this is gonna episode 3 is gonna be nominated for one best episode of a drama or something like that. You'll
Yeah.
definitely see that up there. I honestly think probably 2 episodes will be nominated. I don't know which would be the other one because I would say some of them in the second half are so good that it's hard to say like which one it could possibly be.
Yeah, dude,
But
like the second part of the two-parter with Sam and
Sam and
Henry
Henry,
was like
just with the ending, yeah.
unbelievable.
I feel like that one or the uh Montana episode, or I mean not the Wyoming episode,
Yeah.
and then the final episode. Those 3 and then episode 3. I don't know which ones. It will be one of those 3. They have to like basically
Dude,
condense
like
it to one of
we'll get
those.
to it, but like the cinematography for Joel like going through the hospital just like mowing down all the fireflies was like insane.
Yeah. Um but otherwise, hands down an amazing episode. So
Yeah.
standalone and just such a
Even though it
good.
doesn't like progress the main plot of the
It
show,
shows you
like the
the world.
season.
It gives you
Yeah.
more of the world, and it
Hmm.
really does a good job of world building easily. Um, episode 4 was the start, I believe, of was it episode 4? Yeah, episode 4 was the start
Yeah, that
of
was
St.
where
Louis.
yeah, that was where like Joel and Ellie like
Get there.
crash and they're just like kind of trying to find like a safe place, and that's when like Sam and Henry like get the drop on them.
Yeah. Episode 4 is very interesting for the fact that they keep in some of the good stuff of like Ellie has one of Bill's play
Yeah, that was funny.
the Playman. I don't know what they call it.
Playboy?
Yeah, but it's like
No,
Playboy. No,
Playgirl.
is it Playgirl? Would it be called Playgirl? I guess. But yeah, it's all the dudes,
Maybe.
and she does the whole like she does. Like, it's
And
one
how
of
do
the
you walk
like
around with those things? So
it's
long.
huge. Whoa, you want to see what all the
Why are the
fuss is
pages all
about?
stuck together?
Yeah, and exactly that was the great thing about this show is they took exact full lines, like full conversational lines, not just like a single one liner, but like full on
Yeah.
conversations between Joel and Ellie in the game, put it into the show, and it melded so well. And you're kind of waiting for them to say the line a little bit, but it's like watching Pedro and Bella do it, and you're just like,
I think that
wow,
that might have also been the episode where Ellie starts doing her jokes. And like I loved that the end of that episode was
yeah, because they were in
her,
the car, she had time to spare.
yeah, like her telling, I love that. It's like, well, why don't you like live with your brother Tommy? It's like, it's a long story. Is it longer than 29 hours? Because I think that's what we got.
I forget. She's like, I'm not even tired. It just does like a
Yeah.
quick like frame change, and it's just like her down
Yeah.
and out in the car. It was so
But like
good.
I just loved at the end of that episode when she tells like one last it was like a diarrhea joke or something to Joel. And it's like, yeah, it runs in your genes or whatever. And it makes him laugh because it's so bad. And it's like, yo, that's probably the first time he's actually legitimately laughed in like 20 years
You're
since
starting to
Sarah died.
see, yeah, because the whole thing about them is like, he's not trying to get attached. He was a father, and you're piece by piece watching that father reconstruct itself.
Like that was
Or
the best part of the game for me, was seeing that like from in the beginning, Joel like did not care for Ellie, and he was literally just like, "You're just a job for me, and I need you to not complicate that job." And
yeah,
by the end of the game, he's like, "I will literally kill anyone who comes between you and me because I care for you that
yeah.
much."
I'll literally let the world burn for us to
Yeah.
just so you can breathe. Which we'll get to that soon enough, but uh episode 5 is, yeah, Sam and Henry. You get their backstory, which is very interesting. It's all about everything's about survival. And episode 3 kind of shows you there's more to survival. Hence, like, Frank is like, I don't want to just survive, I want to live. And that's why he invites people over. He has gardens and takes care of things. And for Sam and Henry, the whole thing is like Henry betraying, I guess, like the people there that were being
He was
taken down
a
by Fedra.
Fedra, not sympathizer, but like
Spy.
informant.
Yeah, informant. And he does it
Yeah.
because he needs the medication for
So when
Sam.
the yeah, so which makes absolute sense.
Yeah, it's like, well, shit, you just survived or survival, man. Like, it's what you got to do.
And so like when the rebels of that city rose up and actually overtook Fedra, they were like, okay, we're rounding up all the informants who made our lives miserable, because they were literally telling Fedra how to like keep us down.
Yeah.
And they just like are basically rounding them up and killing them all. And Sam and Henry was one of them.
And the whole thing of it too is like, you don't really get this in the game. The game, it's just, hey, there's people here and they're just murdering anyone that comes into the
Yeah,
town.
they didn't even bother with like who the bad guys of that town were. It's just like, oh, they're just bad guys.
Yeah.
They're just not your friends.
They're
Don't let
just
them kill you.
they're highway robbers, more or less, that are just gonna
Yeah.
basically do horrible things to you. And in this, it's just like, yeah, we rebelled against Fedra. And the whole thing, I think there's collectibles in the game that tell you that they also fought against Fedra and then they killed Fedra. And this is
Yeah.
those people, and it's like only the worst survived. And in this one, it's different because they do have like still a community aspect. They still care about each other. They're tight knit, but they're still, when given the power, they're not that different from Fedra, because yeah, they just start murdering everybody. There's no trial, there's nothing.
Yeah. Dude,
And
that scene where they're just like walking through the streets and they're just like beating the shit out of Federer people like for fun,
yeah,
because they're just like, haha, you
this
did
is
this
what you
to
get.
us
Yeah,
like for so long. Now you get a taste of it. And it's like, you don't want to be better than them. Like
yeah,
you don't want
there's no
to.
sense of like justification,
Yeah,
I
it's like
guess.
if you're gonna kill them, you could just give them a quick, easy death. Like, but you're enjoying torturing them.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I mean, you get that they aren't going to be good, especially for the fact that they do the same thing. They still attack Joel and Ellie on the road, try to kill them, and then like try to barter and be like, please let me live. I can help
Yeah.
you. I'm a person.
Dude, the scene
Eh,
where Joel has to like kill the kid who just Ellie stabbed him in the back and he just like is poisoned. Not poisoned, he's paralyzed.
Yeah,
And he's like begging for his life. No, she shot him. She shot him in like the spine. And it's like she didn't kill him. It was a mortal wound. And he's like begging for his life. And Joel has to just like end him,
yeah.
like
Jill,
within
like,
earshot
you
of
watch
Ellie.
Ellie just like horrified hearing this
Yeah,
stuff.
because she's just like, oh my god, I can't believe, what have I done? Like,
Yeah,
uh,
and the first time she killed was Riley, and then that was more in self defense than anything. This
yeah,
was
everything
also
else has
self
been,
defense, but
but it's different because it's not a infected though.
yeah, it's a real person,
Yeah.
so it's still different for her. And
And
you know
dude, then later on when Joel is like, first off, the scene where they're running from the sniper in the dark, I was like, this is literally almost exactly the encounter from the game,
oh, the
which
old guy.
I fucking loved. And yeah, then you get to the sniper and it's an old guy, and Joel's just like, just put the gun down and leave for 20 minutes and let us go. And he can see that the old guy's like thinking about it, and he's just like begging with him, like, please don't. And then it just like cuts to outside the house and you hear one more gunshot, and like clearly Joel had to take him out. And it's just
Yeah,
like, even after all this time, Joel is like begging people like not to make him do these horrible things, and he does
I
it because
think
he's a survivor.
I think he's also de he's humanizing again because of
True.
Ellie. He wasn't
Yeah.
like that before. I think, like, the whole thing when he sees Tess hurt, he's like, I'm gonna go kill everyone. Like, I don't care. It's no issue for me. Whereas now, yeah, he's growing a conscience again, and he's
Yeah.
feeling feelings again. And having Sam and Henry there too, and they don't abandon, like in the game. The game, he leaves him and he's like, all right, see you, bye, and he's like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
This time, they stick together a lot more, and they also changed Sam, like, not like they changed how he is. Like in the game, he's
I
just
thought it was
like,
interesting that yeah, he was deaf in this one.
yeah, he's deaf. He's got the little, I've never seen that before, the little writing strip where it's just one
Yeah.
paper, you lift it, and it's like
It's like carbon paper,
I
but
was
like
gonna say like an etch
reusable.
and sketch. You know, you
Oh
just take
yeah.
it, but it's like that when you take it, it erases, and then yeah, you keep writing it. So the cool thing about it, I guess, there's no ink, so you don't have to worry about like
Yeah,
running
it's
out or
reusable.
anything. Yeah, but you could tell it has so much wear, and you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But the at least with Bill and Frank, you feel that completion where it's like, you know, it sucks, but they lived a life, they're old. Sam and Henry, it's just so sad because it's like Sam's just a little kid. He's younger than Ellie, and he's afraid because he knows he's infected, and having Ellie trying to help him, but then it doesn't work out. And just like
Yeah.
in the game, Henry has to shoot him
And that
and
was an interesting
kills
other
himself.
difference. Because in the game, you don't know that Henry or that Sam is infected until it happens.
Yeah.
But in the show, like Ellie knows and she's like, well, maybe this will do something. And just I love the shot of like I don't know if they did this on purpose, but like the reason
Well,
why
no, I think you know Sam's infected because he like shows it in a cutscene, but Ellie doesn't see it.
well, I think it was in the cutscene, like she sees him stand she like wakes up in the morning and he's just like standing in the corner and then she doesn't notice that he's like all twitchy until she like puts her hand on him and stuff.
Oh, okay,
But
that's what it was. All right.
but I love that in the show, like because he's deaf, he doesn't hear her, like I
Yeah,
guess tossing and turning and when she's like asleep or whatever. So he doesn't like activate, I guess, until she puts her hand on him because she sees him sitting on the edge of the bed and she's just like for a second, like maybe it worked. He seems fine. Is he okay? And then she's like, oh hey Sam, and he's like immediately lunges at her. And then from the rest, it's like the same as the game. And it's just like it's interesting that it's like even though they changed it where you knew it was going to happen for a second you're like what if.
they give you that red wedding feeling because they even trick you during the red wedding in Game of Thrones, where there's a second where you see Walder Frey, and you're just like, oh my god, they're not actually gonna like. Is there there's like a brief moment where you're like, wait, are they actually not gonna do it? And then they go, no, fucking psych. Oh god, Rob.
Yeah, and then like it's just so sad that like seeing Henry kill his brother, that like even though he knows he's infected and he had to do it, he's just like, oh my god, what have I done? Like I
Yeah,
literally just killed the only thing that ever even mattered to me in this life. And he just immediately kills himself. And
yeah.
Joel screaming out to like try to stop him, but he can't because he can't quite get there fast enough is so heartbreaking. Yeah.
It's
I just thought
crazy.
they did that scene perfectly.
Yeah, it was really well done. And then, you move forward, Ellie's still screwed up by all that, and you have episode 6 where they go
That
to
was so sad when like
Wyoming.
they put, had a couple graves for both of them and she just wrote on Sam's like board thing, I'm sorry, and just leaves it there. It's like, oh my god.
So sad, but like, yeah. Onward, they go to Wyoming, and you get the full on like, oh, here's how it is here, and it's just like it looks very similar to how it looks in the game, which is really awesome.
Honestly, it looked closer to how it looks in The Last of Us
Last of Us
Part
Part
2,
2.
where
Yep.
it's like almost a town at this point. Because in the
Yes.
first game, you basically just go to the dam and it's like, yeah, we got power. We're working on it.
Oh no, people are attacking the day.
Uh,
So yeah, so there's a lot more attacks where it's like in this, you're like, I don't know if there's that many people that'll constantly attack when these two are going around. But yeah, you get the whole like the dog sniff thing, which is different, which was also very tense because you actually weren't since that wasn't in the game, you're
yeah,
like, is the dog gonna
I was
discover
so
it?
scared that
She'll be
they,
fine, but
yeah,
like, yeah, you're just like, oh my god, what's gonna happen here? But you get Tommy, which is Diego Luna, not
yeah,
yeah, Diego Luna,
Gabriel
and
Luna.
like Gabriel Luna, yeah, he's in Terminator Genesis.
Yeah, he's also the good Ghost Rider in the MCU.
I still have to, yeah.
Uh,
Do I want to watch? I don't know.
I don't know. It's hard to
And then you
recommend.
have, I forget the actress's name that plays her, but plays
Yeah,
like his wife, because I
I
knew,
know her from True Blood.
yeah, it's Tara from True
Mhm.
Blood. But she does such a good job of talking to like that. They really expand on that and have her talk about that she was a lawyer, and because this is why it's so different than St. Louis. St. Louis is like, it's lawless. They don't believe in the law anymore. They're just like,
I
it's
love
everything is
that
about
she's.
revenge there.
Uh,
Whereas, or go for it, yeah.
Sorry, I love that they're explaining how their community works and that it's literally a commune, like a communist type thing.
It's so good. Oh my
And
god, I was like, yeah, this was probably better than
and
real life.
and like I forget who, like I think it was Joel was like, so you're communists, and Tommy's just like, well, not that kind of communist. It's like, and then his wife is like, no, we're literally communists. It's a commune. uh,
But
it
she's
was
a
so funny.
lawyer, and because of
uh
that, she makes sure that law is like is everything is done that way, so it recreates society. But with it being a commune, there's no insane political bullshit or anything else. There's a council of people,
yeah, everyone
and
is just working for their own personal benefit, which is the benefit of everyone, because
yes,
they're all trying to survive.
exactly. So there's no sense of greed as much or anything else like that. And ironically enough, in this post-apocalypse, this is like the perfect society
Hmm.
that you kind of wish we have now.
Yeah.
And instead we have potholes and bullshit and shitty politics. It's you guys probably know, if you know America, you know it's a fucking shit show. But Rutina Wesley, that's the actress's name, and she plays Maria. That's what it was.
Mm.
But I got so excited because I'm like, I know True Blood may not have ended good, but I enjoyed the show for a long time, and I enjoyed Tara, so I was kind of happy. I feel like I haven't seen her in anything in a long time. Maybe I think she's just been in stuff
Yeah.
I never watched, so I was just excited to see her again. I was like, oh shit. Um, and I thought she did such a good job of just making things more fleshed out for Ellie to understand how this, like, how
Yeah.
everything is there, and then, like, giving everything about Joel and what he had before, and you get everything you get in the game again with, like, her and Joel kind of going back and forth about, like, I don't want you to leave. I need you. You're who I know. You're all I have. To, like, you're not my daughter and all that stuff. You get all that stuff again, exactly like how it is in the game. Not maybe not the exact same setting, but the exact same delivery of how
Yeah.
that kind of works.
And like even before that whole fight, like I loved his like honest heart to heart with Tommy, where he's just like, I need you to take her to the Fireflies, because there have been a few times in this journey already where I've almost not made it
Yeah,
and almost got her killed. And I froze because I'm old
and it's
now. I don't,
foreshadowing.
and he's like, I don't have it in me anymore. Like, I will not make this journey, but you are younger, you're stronger, you might be able to do it. And he's basically like begging his brother to take care of this person that he wants to be safe, and he doesn't think he can do it himself.
Yeah,
And he can't tell that to Ellie because he's like, well, she won't understand. Like, she's a kid. Like, will she know?
yeah, but she still, finds out and everything else, and they go through it.
Yeah.
And instead of him chasing her on a horse this time, he just, like, stops before they leave. He's like, "Hey, do you want it?" She's like, "Yeah, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Let's go."
He's like, I reckon you have the right to a choice. And she's like, let's go.
And before he even gets to say anything, it's like, all
uh,
right. Yeah, so that was really good. And then you get the college campus, and Joel gets stabbed again, just like in pretty much more or less just like in the
I love how
game.
even those dudes were like someone important later.
Yeah, you're just like, oh fuck. I mean, that's what happens in the game too, but like you don't hear them sing like, you son of a bitch, as much. Like, you killed my friend. Which I don't feel bad anyway, because he literally
Yeah.
attacked him. He attacked him, he snuck up and
Hmm.
attacked him, and it's like, oh, maybe you shouldn't ambush someone immediately and you won't die. So play, fucking, you lost the game of survival, ambush, attack, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Uh, you get episode 7, and then that's really the flashbacks of Riley, and you get everything again. And I feel like there's not much to say, just because it is the DLC, and it's just exactly what happens in the DLC for the
Yeah,
flashbacks.
I think the whole point of that episode was just to show like that Ellie does not take loss well, and why
Yeah.
she like fought so hard to find a way to save Joel.
And to know she actually had a bright future in Boston if she had stayed within
Yeah,
everything, which is
that was
interesting.
interesting that the Fedra guy was like, listen, you
I
can
mean,
keep acting up and being a shit kid and you'll get a shit job someday. Or you could try to apply yourself a little bit and get a slightly better job like I
everyone,
got.
him and Maria know she's very, very smart. She's
Mhm.
highly intelligent. And I also, because they also talk about, I think in the Last of Us podcast, but just the whole, like, hey, in every faction, not everyone's bad. Like, you could tell there's good Federate guys. They're just like, it's
Well, that's the
just how
best
the
part of
situation is. You see him
part
with his
two.
family and everything. Yeah.
like part two does like such a great job of you starting you off with like one set of characters and seeing these other set of characters as like
which
absolutely evil, and
yeah,
then
which
you
we'll
play as that set
refrain.
of characters later.
Yeah, and we'll refrain from talking about like if you
Yeah,
guys want to like there is the Last of Us Part 2 episode we do go through everything and without spoiling it because if you
that's
are
true. We
watching
talked
the
about it for
show
like a
we
long
can
ass
spoil the
time.
game and stuff in this episode but we won't spoil the game in this specific episode so you know that way you don't get screwed over and be
Yeah,
like you lose the shock value of what happens in season 2 of the show that we already know what's going to happen and just like but uh you know episode 8 and 9 are like the final two, 8 being the that's when you get I can't believe I forgot his freaking name. I'm so annoyed. It
oh
was
the
David. That's what
yeah,
it was. So David and James played by Troy Baker, which was hilarious that Troy
that was,
Baker
dude,
was
I
the
love how like almost all the main characters from the original series or the games showed up in the show. Like the guy who was Kathleen's secondhand man was the guy, the voice actor for Tommy.
Yes, that was Tommy. He was like the military guy. You had
Yeah,
Tommy, you had Joel's voice actor as James. You
yeah,
had Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie, is
yeah.
Ellie's mom.
That
And you
was
have
so
Laura
funny.
Bailey who plays Abby in Last of Us Part Two, which I don't say anything about her. I just say there's a girl named Abby, and she is one of the nurses
It's so
or one of the
bizarre, but yeah.
for. I'm not saying who she is, but it's very. Let's just say it's very insane of
It's
the
funny that she's in
specific
that
situation.
room.
Yeah, in that specific room. Oh my god, I can't believe they did that. That was just oh my god, they really did that. That was so good. I love her picture. It's just her like he's dead on the ground. She's like
Yeah, I love it. Uh,
but yeah, you get a flesh out of the flesh, no pun intended. You get fleshed out community of the ski resort and all the people there who are cannibals, and it's very funny to
and
know
it's interesting
that all
that
of them don't know that they're
yeah,
cannibals.
and like in the game, I just kind of assumed that they were all in on it, but like in
Yeah,
the show, it's like no, like the basically their leader is just doing this to keep them all alive and not telling them because he's like, well, they wouldn't want to know, but they
yeah.
want to live.
And the cool thing about this too, just to real fast, St. Louis and like St. Louis in the game it's Pittsburgh, in the show it's St. Louis, but St. Louis and the ski resort here flesh out, and I think it's in Colorado, but it fleshes out the community of these places, whereas in the game you only have these giant burly dudes that are like giant thug guys. They're like, I'm gonna kill you and stuff. And you're just like, oh my God. And in this, it's like, hey, here's like women and children and regular guys that aren't like big old burly dudes that can practically try to kill Joel and stuff. Instead, it's just like,
Yeah, like
yeah,
there's normal people just
whole community of
living.
people. Yeah. And the resort, it's horrifying because I mean the whole thing, I guess the idea is like, yeah, summer and spring, this is a great place. You get to winter. This is awful because there's
Yep.
no things that would normally help this resort like it would in the winter. And they don't have enough food normally, so they resorted to cannibalism. But the only like a handful of like upper people that actually manage all of this know that it is. So everyone else is just kind of like, I'm miserable, but at least we're getting some food. What is this? It's
Yeah,
venison. And they
it's
don't
just
know
venison.
that they've been eating people. And I think they find out off screen because you assume like, hey, our leaders are dead. What's
Yeah,
going Oh
after
my
that, they
god, there's a bunch of
probably
bodies in
found.
freezers.
Yeah, they probably found that.
Yeah. And you know, they they're just it's you get to see what it looks like to have a religious cult of post-apocalypse and how horrifying it could possibly be, and also that the guy in charge ordained himself. He was a school
Yeah, he's like,
teacher,
I found God after the epidemic.
and he's really just a fucking psycho.
Yeah, I used to be a pedophile. Ugh.
No, he was a teacher. He was like a second grade teacher or something.
Yeah, but I think the implication was he was also a pedophile.
You know, that actually also makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. He
I
definitely,
mean,
yeah, there's
especially since he basically was like gonna rape Ellie, and he was just like, "I like it when you
legitimately
struggle."
like
It's like, ugh.
hands. Oh god, that was the
Dude, he
satisfaction of her killing
deserved
him.
the machete to the face over and over. But that was
They
so fucking
somehow made
brutal.
him more uncomfortable in the show than
Yeah,
in the game, which was horrifying. Like that was just like, gee, like this stuff happens. The full thing you guys saw all those interactions with him and her, that all happens in the game, in cutscenes.
Yeah.
And you're just like, yo, this is awful. Like her in the cell, like like bites him and it's like, my name's Ellie, bitch. And it's just like, you're
Yeah.
fuck you. And I'm infected. She stabs James. All of that is literally shot for shot with the game, which I thought was magnificent.
Yeah.
And they just made it even creepier and more satisfying when she kills him. And you're just like,
Oh yeah. And
God,
dude, she's like covered in his blood.
yeah. And
And
that's why it's satisfying after, Joel's just like, it's okay, baby girl, I got you. And
yeah,
right when that happens, it's the full on 100% I am your father now.
because he probably hasn't said that since Sarah.
Yes. So it's like Joel is completely changed. Ellie is also unfortunately completely changed for the worse because of that horrifying experience that she just experienced. So that's like psychologically just
Yeah, that
destroying her
doesn't
mental
not leave
psyche.
scars.
Yeah. I mean, like the whole thing of the final episode when they're going through, like she is out of it for quite some time because she's still dealing with what she had to experience. And there's not as many distractions out in a apocalypse. So she's like completely stuck in it.
Yeah, just
Uh,
basically like completely withdrawn.
yeah. But you get to the end and we get the full on like, hey, we're gonna save you. I mean, like we're gonna save the world. We have to kill the girl. Oh, don't kill the girl. And then Joel proceeds to murder everyone. And they do such a good, like you said earlier, with the shots. The cinematography is
There were like
amazing.
a couple shots that really stuck with me. Like one, the guy who's like literally putting his gun down on the ground and like begging for his life, and Joel still kills him. And
Yep.
then there was another shot that's just like
Doesn't have time for it.
like yeah, and like there's just another shot of like someone just on the ground with just like a hole in their cheek because he shot them in the face, and
Yep.
it's like there's just something so disturbing of the body just like lying so still with just what seems like such a small wound, and it's like they're dead.
I think the crazy thing too is when you look at that, just a building full of all these people dead, is they were going to save the world.
They were gonna try, yeah. And like in the game, they were kind of ambiguous as to like whether it would actually work, because it's just like, well, it might,
Yeah.
and isn't that worth killing this girl for? Because it might work, it might save everyone. And Joel's just like, that's not good enough for me. Like, even if you give me a 100% guarantee, I would not let you kill her.
Yeah. You can't take a child from the parent. Like, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And the whole thing too is, I know a lot of people online, I feel like, have argued that, this was unrealistic of the Fireflies, of being like, hey, is this even going to work? Even if you did find the cure, how the hell are you going to like create this for the world? But I think, I guess you could chalk it up to just kind of the storytelling on how that's going to be, but of like how they wrote it. But it's implied, like you kind of have
Yeah.
to,
I appreciate in the show they actually give like an explanation for why they think that their vaccine might work.
yeah.
And it's plausible. Like I was following along with it and I was like, that might work if it's possible.
And the thing is too, because that's what everyone's saying. It's like it's not possible just in their situation in their state, how the hell they pull it off. It's implied that you kind of have to assume that in this way of like, if it did happen, it would have worked and everything would have been saved. Like that's what you have to look at it that way. If you look at it
Yeah.
too much in the intricacies of like, as this even side, like, will it even work? How are they going to get production and all this stuff? Then you're going to get into a whole rabbit hole you do not want to get into. That is not
Yeah.
worth
I
it.
love that it's been a debate for like a decade over in the video game section of like whether Joel is a good guy or not.
Yeah,
And now it's like
that's
the
the
same
main
thing for the
debate.
show.
Yeah, you don't get into, is it realistic that they could make the vaccine? It's like, dude, it's not gonna break your head over on that one. Trust me. Don't do it. That's like saying like, hey, can you make Godzilla real? Like, is that even the, like, don't do these
Yeah.
things. Just, it's a giant lizard. Have fun. Uh Instead, yeah, it's the whole, did Joel do the right thing? And we already went through that. Everyone that watched it, that played the game, we've already done this. And in this
Mm-hmm.
way, if anything, we feel more justified than we did before if we were in the camp of Joel did the right thing, where the average person, when you're thinking of the needs of the many, yes, Joel didn't do good, but in the game, like, you're just like, he is a parent. What would a parent do? A parent's going to protect their child. You can't blame him
Yeah.
for that, especially after everything he did to get there. Like, that's screwed up. And in this one, this one just makes the Fireflies look like fucking idiots, because
Yeah.
Joel did everything like brought her all the way over there, risked his whole freaking life, and they go like, if he leaves, kill him, all this stuff. They keep treating him like shit, complete shit, and you're just like, even if this didn't happen, I'd want to kill you anyway for being a piece of shit, like pushing me down the stairs like this, being like, hey, get the fuck out of here and stuff. But I get, like, I guess he's like a big deal of like, we know this dude's hardcore, so they're just also probably afraid of him, being like,
Because Marlene has probably told them what he can do.
yeah, so they're more afraid than anything. That's why they're just like,
Dude,
don't
like,
let him like do his thing. But
I love like one of the last shots in the show is like it's in the game too. It's like Marlene literally begging for her life because she's just like, wait, okay, you've already shot me in the stomach. I'm probably gonna die anyway. Like you could just leave me, like, and go take Ellie and go. I clearly cannot stop you anymore. And he's like, no, you'll just come after her one day, and he just kills her.
yeah, no loose ends. I got it. And the other
No
thing
loose
being,
ends.
the other thing being that they could have avoided all this with just the sheer thing of, hey, Ellie, would you like to give your life to save the world? Ellie goes, yes. And Joel goes, okay,
Yeah,
fine. Because she said yes. You're not going to argue. You're not going to like pull her away and then kill everyone in front of her. She's not going to let you do that.
because like in
So,
both the game and the show, they basically like Ellie is knocked out because in the game she basically almost drowns, and
yeah,
then they both get found by the fireflies.
this one, she gets
It-
like flashbanged.
yeah, and it's like they, I guess, keep her unconscious, and they're just like gonna go along with the surgery before they even give her the option to be like, here's the full story. It's your choice.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They were just like, well, what if she says no? We can't let her say no. So we're just gonna keep her drugged until we kill her.
And it does not go well, obviously enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I, for that, for little, besides the fact of, parent protects the child, for the sheer fact of lack of communication with the patient, the person that is going to be the savior of humanity potentially, you don't do that. You give them the opportunity to say, yes, I'll save the world. Like, let me do this thing, especially when she says it
Yeah,
can't all be for nothing. She would have, and Marlene is right, like, she would have chosen to give her life, but she didn't get to choose. And that is a big no-no. And that's why the
yeah.
Fireflies were fools and then got fucking destroyed by Joel. Um, I
Dude,
think,
even like the last shot of the show is the like exactly the last shot of the game where Ellie and Joel are like on their way back to Tommy's town, and she's just like, "Wait, I need you to tell me that everything you told me in the car on the way back here was true. I need you to tell me that the Fireflies were not able to make a cure, that like everything is true."
yeah,
And he says like, yeah, it's all true. And she just, you can kind of see that she doesn't quite believe it, but she just says, okay. And she just goes along with it for now.
yeah.
And yeah,
I think, I think this was just really well done in the fact that, the season 2, they say that it's gonna happen for sure. They already greenlit season 2.
I think they might have also even said that they might split the second game into 2 seasons, which I could absolutely see them doing.
Oh, that would make sense. Just the I'm not, sorry. So like, I'm trying so hard not to say it, but I think they said they're not gonna film for a little bit, which I think they should hold off if they can. And I know everyone wants like the next season, but for the fact that I'll just say that Ellie needs time to grow. That's all
Yeah,
I'll
a little
say.
bit.
A little bit. So we need a little bit of an older Ellie for season 2. Is the only main thing. So as long as they can get that done, and then I'm very curious who they'll cast for season 2 characters that we'll be getting. That'll be
Yeah.
interesting for sure. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's no usually when we talk about a show, we'll speculate of like, hey, what's gonna happen next season? But
But for this, it's like all spoilers.
for this, we already know exactly what's gonna happen,
Yeah.
and we can't say it. So there's nothing else to talk about for this. You're just kind of like,
One thing we can maybe
yep,
say, I do love that we got 1 second of Dina in Tommy's town.
yeah. You get 1 second of Dina. Who is Dina? We're not telling you, but just
She's just like staring at Ellie from a distance. Ellie's like, what? What do you want? I love it.
Just we'll just say that could be an important character later on, but we won't say what her role
Yeah.
is in any way possible. Uh, yeah, and looking at the time, I do not think we have time for Super Mario Brothers. I
Yeah,
think we're
it's
at a good
probably a
stopping
good
point
idea to
here.
stop.
Uh, that has been our discussion on The Last of Us. Overall, I think it was a phenomenal show. Like it is
Yeah.
amazingly good.
Like, I expected it to be good. I did not expect it to be this good.
Yes. If you haven't seen it and just listened to all this, watch it anyway. Because, like I said, once you erase the shock value of something, you pay attention to everything else that's really well done for filmmaking. And this has so much good stuff in it. So definitely just check out the
Like,
show.
one of the few complaints people had was like, "There's not enough zombies in this zombie show." It's like, well, that's not really the point of The
Yeah, it's
Last of Us.
that, and it's fun. It's a double-edged. I mean, it's kind of like a rock and a hard place because everyone always is saying like we're tired of zombie stuff, like we're exhausted, no more zombie stuff, and then they go, where's the zombies? And it's like,
Yeah.
the fuck do you want? Even though I do get the fact that like cordyceps is a complete, it's such a cool, they made it different enough that it doesn't feel the same as a zombie. That's what I really like about it. But
Yeah.
they did say season 2 will have a lot more infected, which I can kind of
Hmm.
think of the certain areas that they might have that, but I won't say anything on to what that is, or a certain infected we might be getting in a certain part.
Dude,
You
the
know what I'm talking
episode
about?
dude, the episode
What a
with the
certain
bloater.
infected we might get.
Oh yeah, dude, in
Oh,
season 2, that'd be fucking crazy. But like,
mm-hmm.
dude, the scene with the bloater in this season, like, I love how it can't throw spore bombs, but it could just like rip people in half.
It just, dude, it grabbed him. It
Dude,
was like,
by the
oh,
way,
okay. They didn't
I
even
love
kill him. I love the fact that in the game, it's a bitch to kill a bloater, but you kill a bloater. In the show, they
it's
just
basically
can't kill
like
the bloater,
bulletproof.
run away.
Yeah, dude, I love how Tommy, like, or the guy, the voice actor for Tommy, the basically Kathleen's like right hand dude, who basically was just like, I'll buy you some time. The way he died is literally how the bloater kills you in the game if he catches you, is he just like grabs your head and just like
I didn't even
rips the
think
top of your
about
head off.
that. That's yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
god, that's so good.
Like, I that's one of the things I loved about this show is there's so many like little tiny like references to gameplay elements that they like kind of throw in there because like you said, for a show they don't really need to cover most of the gameplay because that's the point of playing the game. But in the show, it's going to be mostly story based. But it's cool that they could still find ways to be like, here's a little bit of the game in there though.
Yeah, God, it's so freaking good. But that has been our discussion on The Last of Us from HBO, and it was a good time.
Oh
And
yeah,
next week, I'm not sure what we're doing yet. It's gonna be one of two things. We are going to have an episode, a two-part episode. So probably two recordings that aren't even gonna be on the same day. They're gonna be 2 different weeks, just because we're gonna probably have different people on them. But we're gonna have a two-part episode for Destiny 2 Lightfall. We're gonna talk about Lightfall as well as Season of the Seraph and Season of Defiance is the current one. Part one will, I can tell you right now, part one will be on Season of the Seraph plus the campaign for Lightfall, story, gameplay, everything, plus like the new destination we have, and if we have time, maybe Strand. Part two will be like all the exotic stuff that goes on in it, the raid and some other stuff, as well as Season of Defiance. So, oh, and like more of the UI stuff, like the UI changes, weapon loadout. I mean, like you now have character loadouts and everything else. So there'll be a lot of discussion. I guess think of like part one will have more of the story, and then part two will have a lot more of the just what would you call it, state of life, or is it quality of life changes, I guess you
yeah,
would say.
yeah,
But we'll have multiple guests. I don't want to say so far I have one guest for part one. I'm working on the others, but most likely we'll have two guests for each episode, maybe like one at the least, but two at the most. 1 to 2 for each episode. They might not all be the same. We might have someone that's there for both. I'm not too sure yet. So far we have someone for part one specifically. But it's gonna be fun guests. Usually I try to get my friends that I've gone to school with, other people I know that are like into this stuff in, but right now I'm reaching out to more prominent people that are much more successful than us in this kind of thing that I'm trying to get. And we have one so far of that, but it'll be fun. I'm hoping, it's a good discussion, it's a great time. I was at first even thinking like, well, you need a part 3, depending on how many people and like how into it we get. I really don't know. There could be a chance of that, but I doubt it. We'll see. If that happens, it'll just be a long part 2 episode where we record and then I split in half later on or something like that. But
Yeah, that could work.
that'll either be next week or the week after. If it's not next week, we'll do an episode on the Super Mario Brothers movie, along with a maybe Creed 3, because we just saw Super Mario Bros. Today. We were actually going to do it this episode, which I said earlier, but time, we don't want to overshoot
We don't
things.
want to
So
like a 2-hour episode again.
yeah. So we'll probably do that with we're gonna go either watch, I guess, like Creed 3, might go see. So we might throw that in. Otherwise, I will say an update, like other movies we were gonna talk about, Cocaine Bear, just not gonna do it for now. If it's even worth talking about when it comes out on like Netflix or whatever, we'll see. But I think we've kind of missed the window for that. And I've heard
Yeah.
like I don't think it might not even be worth doing an episode on anyway. Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania, we're just gonna wait for it to be on Disney Plus. We're not gonna see it in theaters, and we're just gonna put that together with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So there'll be a double feature episode when that happens. Otherwise, movies that we're looking forward to that we're gonna probably talk about as they come out. Evil Dead Rise. There's that new anime, I think it's Suzumi.
Yeah, the Crunchyroll one.
Yeah, so we have Suzumi, we have Evil Dead Rise. There's some other stuff coming out soon too. But we'll probably talk about those. I might talk about Scream 6. I might go see that when I get a chance. I might do like Scream 5 and 6 because I haven't watched either of those yet. And then that's like movies and stuff. Shows, we'll have Mandalorian soon enough, Bad Batch, and
Oh god, I gotta watch the second season of Bad Batch.
oh, I mean it's done now. You can just binge it. It's all
Yeah,
finished.
at least there's that.
Maybe South Park. And I don't think I talked about Shadow and Bone before. We'll see if I want to talk about that again. Trigon Stampede, I think. And then I don't know if we'll want to talk about History of the World Part 2. I haven't watched that either yet, but there's all that. We'll do Cut of Steel episodes. We have 2 coming up soon enough. I don't know if we'll have guests for them or not, but it'll be Black Adam and then Shazam Fury of the Gods, while those 2 episodes coming up. And then Hogwarts Legacy is probably the next game after Destiny 2 Lightfall that we'll talk about. James, did you buy that yet? I don't know if you bought that.
Which one?
Hogwarts Legacy?
No, I still haven't gotten that.
Okay, well,
I've been playing through Dead Space Remastered or Remake, and dude, that game is fucking good.
oh no, I bet I'm gonna play that after Hogwarts, but I want to get those 2 done before Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor come out. So, God, that's coming out soon.
Yeah.
It comes out at the end of the month, I think. But okay, yeah. So that's basically all the stuff we'll probably do episodes on coming up. Some like 1 or 2 games. We'll see. I mean, Destiny for sure. Maybe when we get a chance, Hogwarts Legacy, and then all those movies, multiple shows. So there's plenty of stuff to populate. And like I said, I'm working on getting more guests for more stuff. Destiny 2 Lightfall will be like the first of that. And then from there, we'll see for Cut of Steel and those other stuff. Maybe not the movies specifically, but more like maybe the games and the TV shows, more like Star Wars stuff and everything else I can possibly get guests on. But we'll see how it all goes. But that's everything. Hope you all enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time. So long.
Thanks for listening.
Oh wait. Oh my God. Sorry guys. I almost forgot. If you like the show, subscribe on Twitter, Instagram,
Oh yeah.
and TikTok at Sutro Sidetalk, all one word. And you can email us at sutrosidetalk@gmail.com and send us feedback, comments, any questions you want us to read on the show. And if you can, subscribe on whatever platform you are listening to or watching on. So YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. If it is Apple Podcasts, please give us 5 stars. And if it is Spotify, please rate us. And if it's YouTube, give us a like on the episodes besides subscribing. And now that is it. Catch you all later. So long.
See you next time.